Hi there. I want to talk about how the pro-lifers are interpreting this current, lack of a better word, enthusiasm the Democrat Party is showing for very late abortions right now. We've had high-profile people justifying performing an abortion while the woman's in active labor. We had another politician, Governor of Virginia, I think, who was saying that if the baby comes out alive, you make a decision about whether you're going to take any steps to care for that baby or not. And it's very, very easy for the pro lifers to point to that and say, look at those people. Look how heartless they are. They're perfectly okay with killing perfectly healthy babies or perfectly healthy mothers even after they're born. Now, pro-lifers are seeing that way pretty much for the same reason that these politicians are advocating for it, which is that the wires are getting crossed. There's a tendency for people to naturally affiliate with groups, and there's us and then there's them. Okay. And everybody wants to be on the side of what's good and what's just and what's kind and what's right. And if somebody opposes you, well, then obviously they're bad, right? So each group wants to believe the best of the people that are in their group and the worst of the people that are in the other group. And sometimes the best of the people in your in group is right, and sometimes the worst of the people in the other group is right, but not necessarily. You have to look at the evidence, but people don't want to look at the evidence. The example I'd like to give is think about if you're Catholic or are sympathetic toward Catholics, maybe you're also a Christian, the pedophile priest thing. Nobody wanted to believe that that was true. You didn't want to believe that people you trusted would do such horrible things. You didn't want to believe that it was widespread that priests were abusing children. And you certainly didn't want to believe it was widespread that higher ups were covering it up, that they'd find out about it and they just ship this guy someplace else and let him victimize more children. The feeling is please, please let this not be true, because it threatens even who you are to feel like you've been affiliated with these people who do these horrible things. And the same is true of pro-choice people. They don't want to be seeing themselves as enabling people who do horrible things any more than anybody else does. And they've affiliated with this group because they believe that sometimes women are in these difficult situations and they need to make this difficult decision, and they wouldn't do it unless they had a really good reason and so forth. And you've heard all the rhetoric. And the thing you have to keep in mind is that they believe it. They're not just saying this to try to blow sunshine up your skirt. Okay. Now, I think the reason these laws are coming up right now is that Kermit Gosnell's luck clearly ran out. For 17 years, nobody set foot in his clinic. He was able to have flea-infested cats roaming the place, crapping all over the floor, bloodstained blankets. You can watch the movie Gosnell. It's available now to watch, or you can watch for free a documentary called 3801 Lancaster. There's also, you would have to purchase to view, but there's a follow up to 3801 Lancaster. Or you can Google Kermit Gosnell grand jury report and you can learn about what was happening. And it was appalling. And the reason he was able to get away with that is because there were key people who believed in the abortion lobby idea that we mustn't tamper with access, that access to abortion is the ultimate good thing for women. And some level they know that things are a little, but they hope it's not too bad, and they frankly don't want to look too closely. Just like I don't think Catholics wanted to be turning over every rock looking for pedophile priests. They were just kind of hoping this whole thing. That's that natural thing when people in your in group or something doing something bad, you want it to just go away. So I think that there are some. Well, I know that there have there've got to be some doctors. Carpin's clinics closed. Three of Dr. Douglas Carpin's former employees came forward with pictures of pretty far advanced babies, big babies, that healthy mother, healthy baby came out alive and he had killed them. Now, he's not in practice anymore, but I find it hard to believe that he's the only one. And I don't think Kermit Gosnell is delusional when he says that a lot of people were doing the same things he was doing. I think that they're doing it under much cleaner circumstances, mainly because they would find the cat crap too offensive to put up with. But if it wasn't happening, they wouldn't be fighting for these laws. Let's just put it that way. And that'll become clear as I go on why there has to be somebody who's following Gosnell's infanticide path behind this, somebody who's got some power, some connections. But the thing is, you have to realize that the people who are enabling that aren't letting themselves believe that it's really happening. And you see this in life all the time. You see women who cannot believe that their husband is molesting the kids. So it's not happening. It's not happening. People do that. Okay. And it's not because people think that these things are okay. It's because they think it is too horrible to actually be true. All right. So you need to get that into your head first. So I think that the legislators really believe what they're being told, that these late abortions are only being done either there's a severe maternal health problem, which obviously they're not giving that too much thought for reasons I'll go into in a minute, or this baby is moribund, suffering from some horrible condition, and so they're really believing this. They're not just, oh, healthy mother, healthy baby, go ahead and kill it. So we know as pro-lifers that that's really an unusual situation. And, the Guttmacher Institute has gathered data, and the later abortions are done for the same reasons as early abortions, for the most part. Occasionally, there's one where they've gotten an unfavorable fetal diagnosis. Now, something that you need to understand about health of the mother. People know Roe versus Wade was the Supreme Court decision that abortion's an inalienable right, and as long as the doctor's willing to do it, have at it. And they allowed some really narrow. They allowed the states to restrict abortion after viability, but only if they allowed abortion for the mother's health. And they didn't say in Roe versus Wade what health was, but they did say in a companion decision, Doe versus Bolton. And in Doe versus Bolton, health was defined very broadly. It was to include the woman's age, her family situation, her finances. You know, basically, if she could come up with a reason at all, it would fall under health. Except maybe I wouldn't look good in a bathing suit. I don't think they'd be able to squeeze that by under health. But my husband wouldn't find me as attractive in a bathing suit, would then become a familial issue, and that's her family situation. So then it would fall under health. Just she doesn't like how she looks. Well, my self-esteem's really damaged by how I look in a bathing suit. Yeah, under Doe versus Bolton, that would be health. Um, the most common reasons, really, and Warren Hearn, who does late abortions in Colorado, has flat out said that he considers every abortion to be a health of the mother abortion. Because if she says, I'll sign on the dotted line for this abortion, she has made the judgment call that her life would be better. Therefore, her inner sense that her life is better is part of health. And if you take a little bit of time to think about the idea of post-viability life or health of the mother, take a minute and think about that. Now, my best friend had to have 3 pregnancies terminated in the 3rd trimester because of gestational lupus. I'm not sure what dumping protein means, but it was a sign that something was horribly wrong. Get that baby out or she's going to die. Okay, those 3 pregnancy terminations are Daniel, Rebecca, and Mary. Okay, Daniel's got 5 kids now. Rebecca works for a book company, smart as a whip, love her to bits. And Mary just got married. These are 3 young adults going about their lives. When their mother's life is in danger in the 3rd trimester, their doctor did what any reasonable, responsible obstetrician gynecologist does, which is an emergency C-section. That gets the baby out of the mother within the hour. It ends this life-threatening pregnancy within the hour. Okay, store that in your mind. Within the hour, that pregnancy's over. Store this in your mind. She is being attended by skilled physicians, skilled nurses. They've got all the equipment that they need. If she hemorrhages, if her heart stops, whatever kind of complication, they've got her on monitors, careful medical facility, medical equipment, medical personnel. Okay. That's when you do the responsible thing when the mother's life or health is endangered after viability. These abortions are not done in hospitals, they're done in clinics. And it's not over in less than an hour, it's 3 or 4 days. And those 3 or 4 days that woman spends in a motel room, and she doesn't have doctors and nurses there. She has whatever companion she brought with her, her mother, her friend, the baby's father. That's who she's got supervising her, not doctors, not nurses. And I don't think most hotels have pulse oximetry and the ability to do a transfusion on the spot. So let's move forward with that. Day one, if the doctor's skilled enough, Gosnell wasn't, which is why he just delivered them alive and then killed them. If the doctor's skilled enough, he takes this gigantic syringe. It's the same kind of syringe they use to do the amniocentesis for prenatal diagnosis. And it has to be a big needle because it's got to get through the mother's abdominal wall, um, through the uterus, into the amniotic sac. And they just use ultrasound and guide it a little further straight into the baby's heart. And these, it's post viability abortions we're talking about. So these are babies, if they were in the NICU and you stuck them with a needle, you'd hear them scream. Okay, so you know that this hurts. Think of how thick that needle is, getting it straight into the heart. Okay, and they inject the same drugs that are used in executions. These are drugs where people scream bloody murder, that it is totally inhumane to inject these into the veins of an anesthetized convicted murderer. But it's just right for a baby whose only crime is having a disability, or a mother who doesn't want him. It's what the hell's wrong here? Okay. Now, again, pro-lifers, keep in mind these politicians aren't thinking this through because they don't want to think it through. Okay. So, day one, if the doctor has enough skill, inject the baby, make sure it's going to die. Then they take these little seaweed sticks called laminaria, they're little dried seaweed sticks, and they insert those into the woman's cervix. And overnight, they absorb fluid and they swell up, and that dilates the cervix. And she goes into the clinic, they do an ultrasound, let's make sure that baby's dead, take out the laminaria, put in some new ones, send her back to the hotel. And then after she's dilated enough, they give her drugs to induce labor. Induce labor, okay? Labor and delivery. Then abortion is not avoiding giving birth. Once you've hit viability, you're giving birth. The difference is, instead of being in a hospital, fully equipped, delivering a live baby into the waiting hands of a doctor or midwife, you're going to an abortion clinic and pushing out that dead baby into a toilet. Okay? So try to come up with, if you will, some health problem that this woman can possibly have where she is better off in a motel room for 3 days than in a hospital with doctors and nurses, and that pregnancy's over within the hour. So that whole life of the mother, health of the mother, we know that they're just weaseling when they say health, okay, because it's nonsensical. Now let's look at the fetal indications. And that really is a broad range of things. That could be anything from a readily correctable cleft palate to maybe amniotic band syndrome, where bits of amnion have wrapped around the baby's limb, and so they're missing an arm or a leg, to really, really absolutely horrific things like harlequin ichthyosis. Google it if you dare. It's horrible. It's far worse than the anencephaly that the abortion lobby always brings up. Um, it's bad. So, I mean, I'm acknowledging that some of these abortions, not many of them, thank God, not many of them, are done because there is something very terribly wrong with the baby. But let's stop and think this through a minute. Let's just imagine that the diagnosis is not made a couple of weeks before birth. Let's imagine that this diagnosis is made when the baby's born. Baby comes out, baby has a problem. Now, what do we expect? Well, the doctor discusses with the parents, maybe this situation can be corrected. Maybe the baby can have surgery to fix his heart. Um, maybe we can give the baby some medication to make his lungs stronger. Often there can be things that can correct or mitigate whatever the baby's problem is. Um, But sometimes, yes, it is a really, really horrible situation, and this baby just is going to die, and you can't save this baby. But the doctor wouldn't say, "Oh, let's just stab him in the heart with a syringe full of drugs that you wouldn't give a condemned murderer." No doctor that pretends to be compassionate would advocate for that. What they would do is palliative care for the baby, emotional support for the parents, which is hospice. And I think all of us are familiar with hospice. And there is such a thing as perinatal hospice, which means hospice that starts before the baby's born. And what this does, first of all, it helps the parents to get connected with other parents who've been through the same thing. Because I will acknowledge, I cannot understand what those parents are going through. I can understand that it is horrible and I can feel for them, but I can't know because I haven't walked that path. So perinatal hospice hooks them up with other parents who have dealt with that situation. It helps them to make a birth plan. And sometimes they plan for a natural delivery. Sometimes they plan for a cesarean. Sometimes they talk about, okay, if the baby starts to show these symptoms, then maybe we better deliver earlier to give the baby a better chance. But they make these plans and they talk about it and they get ready for it. And then when the baby's born, if the baby needs palliative care like any other dying person, you provide that. And the parents get to spend time with the baby. And they get to love that baby and kiss and hold that baby. Family members get to come in and see the baby. There's a nonprofit called Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep that's a network of professional photographers who volunteer to come in and take photos with the family so that the family has beautiful photos, not just snapshots, but very high quality, beautiful photos to remember that time they had with their baby. And the parents who have used perinatal hospice all say that it was 100% worth it. They got their time with their child. They got to be with that baby for cherishing every moment of that child's life. And this is an ugly thing to say, but it's true. When they're doing these abortions, remember how they do them. A needle straight into the heart. That's not kindness. Okay. The person whose pain is being ended is not the babies, it's not the mothers, it's the doctors. Okay. Doctors go into obstetrics because they want to deliver babies. They want to be part of that joy. They want to be part of the wonder and the excitement. Okay. They want to be part of that. They do not want to spend weeks with this devastated mother who has found out that her baby is very sick, has a serious disability, might even be dying. That is a really, really hard situation. And these doctors go into fight or flight mode just like anybody else does when they're stressed out. And they want that situation to be gone. They do not want to be in that situation. They want it over and done with. Now, it's a natural thing to want to just be out of this horrible situation. And honestly, there are a lot of doctors. Again, you go to the Be Not Afraid website where parents network who have faced these diagnoses and decided to go to term. You go to these websites, doctors will refuse to go through the remainder of the pregnancy with the woman if she refuses to abort. They will flat out abandon the patient and she has to go find another doctor because that is how much the doctor does not want to deal with this. For that doctor, once the baby's aborted, it's over. He can go about his merry little life as if none of this ever happened. But the family does not have that luxury. For those parents, there is never going to be a day for the rest of their lives that they are not carrying this with them. For the rest of their lives. Okay? Every holiday, the child's not there. If they have other children or their friends have children, they look at these milestones, first day of school, graduation, little league. In with all the happiness, there's a pain underneath because that child's not there. This is something that that child missed. Okay? No matter that abortion does nothing to erase that. That is going to be there. The question is, do we take any positives out of this whatsoever, or do we ensure that there is nothing but tragedy? Because that's what the abortion does. Okay. There is no chance for that baby. You go to that Be Not Afraid website, you find a lot of cases where the prognosis the doctor gave was way off. That baby was not nearly as sick as the doctor said that baby was going to be. And sometimes there was nothing wrong with the baby at all. That baby comes out healthy. Okay. You only have a chance of that happening if you don't kill the baby. Okay. So aborting that baby is just pretty much guaranteeing that you are going to have the worst possible outcome. It's choosing the worst possible outcome that you could have in that situation. And these doctors press this woman. I just read a case where the doctor made the appointment for the abortion after the woman had said she didn't want it. Okay. They push hard for this because, again, it's hard for them. They do not want to go through that painful process. They want this pregnancy to be over. Because for them, once the pregnancy's over, it all goes away, but it never goes away for the mother. So, even the people like these legislators who are thinking, well, this is the prenatal equivalent of, letting go of somebody who has a fatal disease, and we're just going to not aggressively keep them alive. And I would say that's how they're viewing it, although judging by their level of discomfort, I think that one lady, when presented with, there she is, she's in labor, she's dilating, she's crowning, can we do the abortion? And she's kind of like, yeah. And you could tell that, why, what health condition could she have where you have to take an extra step to kill the baby? Yeah, it doesn't add up. But never underestimate the power of that need to believe that your in group is on the side of goodness and justice and right and doing the good thing. And that's why these politicians are advocating for this. The impetus for these laws, I have absolutely no doubt, came from doctors who are very, very afraid that what happened to Gosnell is going to happen to them. That they are going to get caught doing post viability abortions, healthy mothers, healthy babies, and then when the baby comes out alive, killing it. That they're doing it, and they do not want to wind up having to sign papers saying that they will not appeal their guilty verdict in order to avoid the death penalty. They don't want to go on trial for their lives because they're killing born babies. So I think that is the impetus. Okay, that's the impetus. Seeing what happened to Gosnell, they're shaking in their shoes. They know that they might have politicians on their side right now, but a Detective James Woods might come up who is going to be dogged and is going to pursue this and is not going to let it go. And the pro-lifers are becoming more aggressive. When they are discovering these things, they're pointing it out to the medical board. They're pointing it out to the health department. They're pointing it out to the press. They absolutely will not shut up about it. And sooner or later, these guys' luck is going to run out and they're going to wind up with somebody who's not going to be willing to look the other way. And so they need this insurance. They need to make everything Gosnell did legal so that, and the abortion lobby is like, they're feeding a lot of money into us. Plus, bad things happen. These investigations are really embarrassing. And if you legalize these horrible things, then there's no more embarrassing investigation. And there's no chance that your political allies find out that you've been using them. Okay, so please don't assume these politicians are being evil. I think if they knew what was really going on, they'd be pretty horrified. In fact, the fact that they're defending these things, these people, means that they actually do think that it's horrible. They just don't think it's actually happening. Okay? Shalom.